to the 4th AKEPT Global Series President Forum in collaboration with Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia.
Pandemic is a temporary phenomenon. Once it is over, everybody will be back to the university.
I would like to personally welcome and thank all panelists who make time to join us here today.
All the planning and decision made by PMT.
Used to be. We have moved from micromanagement to empowerment.
Especially in all the efforts that you're doing it for, trying to assist the others.
But work with it and disclose the flaws that are there.
It's just that we have not given it some credence or credibility.
Everyone in my generation faced it.
We'll be discussing on the role of higher education leaders in promoting institutional access.
Our cultural knowledge, our cultural wisdom.
So I'm very, very eager for us all.
I sold nothing. I went to my manager.
We can have more discussion, inshallah.
Again, sort of the lockdown in the airlines office.
And when we were developing that particular program,
How do we do this in this practice-based culture education?
I'm a big advocate for.
I think it's really a seminar for us to pause, to
concept in terms of balancing between human and intelligence.
The challenges and opportunity of leadership skills in the digital age. And
Investment compared to only 53% increase in.
And we have shift number 9.
Technology. Actually, one of the examples.
Either you
2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 4.
This is the reality that when we have
leading means you have to motivate everyone.
basically
Very important. Skill versus is
Azira. I just wrote an article and service activities. So the Center for ASEAN Regionalism.
Research also affected. That we want
Countries, it is no longer
This come in and so forth. Evidence.
Yeah, if somebody says they're the best.
Learning to do, learning to become. Weird, isn't it? Yeah.
we come to the performance
Conundrum. They do not know what to do because it's on the worst assignments at work.
Others, you bear the responsibility.
I'm looking at everyone as equal.
our challenge, then we work from there.
And the third one is computer management.
Or it could be one who is
to work hard and.
In other words, I believe that it needs to be done.
Irony, if we try to hope to get out from the top. Yes, this is it. As leaders, right? We have to be
Strategic direction of their respective organizations.
as and when required and based on the urgency and the priority level.
That was when I discovered
The box, and we actually send it to the students and a group of students.
Published by UNESCO.
Substance abuse. So all of these combined.
I know that many of the universities
They shift their classes into.
Subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow me to invite Ustaz
framework be unified so that people can identify.
project non-profits and ministry.
5 friends who have
Where is the way forward to move?
Institute of Global Health.
it is to look at the role of leaders.
Tentang soal bencana, NANMA tidak kesorangan. NANMA tak boleh bergerak berkesanan pelan pemulihan negara. Kadang tak kira malam, siang pagi petang. Ada yang tidur di kampus. So apabila dicakap tentang filantropi terdapat pelbagai.
Kalau masuk ke tabung kerajaan, kemudian dia nak
Negara-negara barat yang kita jumpa.
bagaimana Pram melihat evolusi dalam bidang perubahan.
bulan Januari 2009. Kepulang hari ini kita andaikan yang sebab sebenarnya kearifan lokal dan amanah sebagai Presiden Persatuan Kaunsil di New Hampshire misalnya di kompetitif di peringkat internasional.
Semacam bidang atau sekarang kita kenal.
Terima kasih di dalam menamakan produk ataupun
to sort of validate, to ensure
Communication with them, there was constant.
The same topic, that is mental.
2007 and also outstanding.
Such thing as dasar kesihatan mental, no such thing as.
This one is very, very significant because if you have
might as well close down the university.
And the organizer also provides the dynamic and progressive role of the Muslim Ummah.
And a very warm welcome to.
We have scored very well in leadership.
Resilience, computational and design.
To look at what we have to see.
Universiti has done. I think that's a classical example.
But we don't have to determine teaching or teaching learning at heart.
For the sustainability of PTPTN.
Participants are out there.
Counseling and clinical psychology unit has been providing all spread over 150 hectares of land.
Of Talent Corporation Malaysia Berhad or not.
So that the program that we are proposing.
Work-life practices, which again has become a norm today.
Values in the university, okay? You gotta uphold that. And the leader, it is about value-based leadership.
It's very touchy. It's how
New to develop the culture.
Reduction and there is investment in
Malaysia and the permanent representative of Malaysia.
I was thinking of value-based leadership, which is something
really good one. My records.
And therefore, if you're a VBL leader,
yang memberikan salam itu untuk salam semua kepada
buka laluan dan jaringan takdir job.
Okay. So we have to ask ourselves.
Sebagai penjawab awam, jadi genap sebenarnya.
Ada pengurusi lah Tuan Yang Mulia Raja.
How to look up about leadership and about well-being.
By women. 3.7% of company CEOs.
What I'm good at, what I'm not good at, and what I need to do.
This could provide insights for recommendations related.
Akademi Kepimpinan Pendidikan Tinggi, or in short, AKEPT, is one of the agencies under Ministry of Higher Education that focuses in competencies and values development among leaders and future leaders of higher education. Many programs and modules have been designed to strengthen the competencies of leaders and future leaders. Meanwhile, the diverse group of speakers and trainers are invited and included to share their expertise, experiences, and knowledge. Apart from gaining valuable experience from great speakers, participants will also be able to build strategic networks through engagement from different institutions. Center for Leadership Development, or in short CLD, is one of the centers under AKEPT organizational structure that plays a crucial role in designing and organizing leadership development program. The CLD Leadership Program is designed based on the AKEPT Leadership Competency Model that has a lifespan of 2 to 3 years due to the changing demand and expectations of higher education. Programs organized under CLD are competency-based and organized in small groups of 30 to 40 participants as to allow for interaction and discussions to take place. There are 4 main categories, which are AKEPT Signature Program, AKEPT Smart Partnership Program, AKEPT Leadership Onboarding Program, and AKEPT Academic Leadership Program. These categories are to cater to a more structured and holistic approach in determining the contents of each and every program. The main objective of programs organized by CLD is to align with the competency model and strengthen competencies among incumbents of key positions in higher learning institutions. Academic Leadership Program comprises of 11 modules that are grouped into 3 domains, which are self-leadership, team or peer leadership, and organizational leadership. The contents are dedicated to the context and pretext of higher education in building competent academics in areas related to academic leadership. The spirit of Academic Leadership Program is to understand the philosophy of being an academic leader who will eventually become public intellectuals or referred academics in the field of expertise. It is truly important for all academics to be exposed through sharing of experiences by renowned academics. We believe in storytelling, case study, intellectual discourse, experiential learning, and exchange of ideas as our approaches in promoting programs under Center for Leadership Development. Do join us at AKEPT as we will not just offer programs in our manual list, but the enriching and extended network that can be obtained from the sessions in which we have a blend of public as well as private universities participants. Shaping minds, building leaders is our principle, and our hope is all academic will be able to have the opportunity to be engaged with AKEPT in roles as speakers, facilitators, coaches, trainers, and participants.
Greetings from Universiti Malaya. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you to the inaugural webinar global series hosted by the Higher Education Leadership Academy, AKEPT, Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia, in collaboration with the Universiti Malaya, which comprises of 3 webinars on different topics and perspectives related to the current pandemic that has affected the world, and in particular higher education institutions. This is one of our initiatives to stay in touch and engage with our students, partners and stakeholders in facing the new normal as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused a sudden shift in the higher education paradigm, forcing rapid changes that we have never witnessed before within such a short period of time. We will be kicking off this webinar series with a session on the theme Future Leadership Higher Education, Leading Beyond the Pandemic, with experts from leading universities and senior leaders sharing their insights on the future of leadership in the realm of higher education. In the second webinar series, 3 prominent women leaders will be sharing insights on their work fighting for an equal voice on the theme Empowerment of Women in Higher Education, the hand that rocks the cradle. Finally, our third webinar series will be featuring leaders sharing their views on the topic Reimagining Internationalization in Higher Education in the post-COVID-19 era. In particular, they will discuss about the way to move forward, focusing on student mobility. On behalf of the University of Malaya, I would like to thank the officers under the Associate Vice Chancellor Global Engagement Portfolio who have worked hard to make this webinar a success. My thanks also go to AKEPT for the support and to all the honorable speakers for their valuable time and contribution. I hope you will have a fruitful session and that you will continue to join us for the upcoming webinars in this series. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon. Our guest of honor, Professor Dato' Insinyur Dr. Muhammad Hamdi Abdul Syukur, Vice Chancellor, Universiti Malaya, Professor Dr. Yong Zulina Zubairi, Project Leader of AKEPT Global Series, University President's Forum 2022, Associate Vice Chancellor, Global Engagement, UM, the honorable speakers, Professor Banchong Mahesavira, President Mahidol University, Thailand, Professor Sally Wheeler, Deputy Vice Chancellor, International Strategy, Australian National University, Australia, Professor Helen Bailey, Deputy Vice President, Global Business Development, King's College London University, United Kingdom, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to extend a very warm welcome to AKEPT Global Series with the theme Future Leadership Higher Education, Leading Beyond Pandemic, a collaborative effort between Higher Education Leadership Academy, AKEPT, and Universiti Malaya, UM. Thank you so much for investing your valuable time in attending this seminar. On behalf of AKEPT, I would like to congratulate Professor Dr. Yong Zulina Zubairi, the Associate Vice Chancellor, Global Engagement, University of Malaya, and her team for gathering 3 esteemed speakers today to share their insights and thoughts on the issue of future leadership in higher education, leading beyond the pandemic. I believe beyond pandemic, that will not only benefit the scholars, but also the community as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, many things have been said over and over again about the pandemic. For the past 2 years, we have gone through a series of events that challenges our way things are done and requires us to adapt and relearn. The disruption of the academic year by the COVID-19 pandemic required higher education institutions to manage and lead under new conditions. So many questions remain to be answered by most higher education leaders to move forward beyond this pandemic without jeopardy educational needs of learners. Hence, this AKEPT forum, in collaboration with Universiti Malaya, seeks to provide the catalyst for action through reflection, especially to higher education institutional leaders. And today, we are honored to have Professor Bancong Mahesavaria, Professor Sally Wheeler, and Professor Helen Bailey sharing with us their insights, experiences, and best practices as university leaders. As some of you may have known, AKEPT is the Higher Education Leadership Academy in Malaysia that is currently providing leadership development to higher education institution leaders. We have 3 centers that are geared toward ensuring that the institutional leaders are equipped with the competencies needed to lead the institution. The Center for Leadership Profiling looks into the ecosystem of talent management in higher education and focuses on the profiling process of the national top talents, looking into their knowledge, skills, and abilities prior and subsequent to strategic appointments. The Center for Leadership Development focuses on providing aid and intervention courses and trainings to ensure that the profile leaders can enhance their skills and competencies to lead an institution. They provide the onboarding programs for the vice chancellors and top management for the universities with academic leadership courses ranging from the topics human governance in leadership, international dean's course, strategic leadership in higher education, and many more. The Center for Leadership Sustainability, or better known as CLS, focuses on general topics that are not touched by the two other centers, but also provides that platform for leaders in ASEAN to look into higher education in the 22nd century, like the University Presidents Forum webinar today. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 outbreak has seized the attention of senior leaders and emergency management teams having to make quick decisions and actions in response to the crisis. We have witnessed the exchange of ideas and best practices across our networks in managing this global health crisis, where leaders across institutions have demonstrated their willingness to support one another in moving to a virtual delivery of university curriculum, among others. As we continue to wrestle through the uncertainties with hope and knowledge, any sharing helpful to orient us a productive and forward-moving momentum in 2022. In addition, we understand now that current leadership needs to bridge between the leaders of today and the leaders of tomorrow. This calls for leaders to relook various aspects of leadership from governance and reviewing their core function across strategy, finance, performance, and managing risks. In this time of need, learners need to develop strategies to be intentional and comprehensive. Very practically, we will use technology differently in the future than we have in the past. We are learning so much about technology-enabled learning, engagement of stakeholders, and remote work arrangements that will help us provide an even richer, deeper working and learning environment in the years ahead. Within the context of higher education, we will have to consider how we use artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, and the Internet of Things as a few examples. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this forum will provide our participants with knowledge and insights related to leadership competencies to move up the career ladder, manage crisis, and readiness in making any decisions. This platform will also focus on leadership skills required in managing various issues and challenges in the COVID-19 pandemic era and other pertaining issues related to higher education, particularly in the region. As we move forward in the pandemic and transition to endemic, it is expected that the participants, especially leaders in higher education from all nations, aspire to create leadership trails in dealing with ambiguity and operating with the flexibility to thrive in the future. Our future is a shared one, so let's take a shared leadership approach to get there. AKEPT, under the Center for Leadership Sustainability, is looking forward to organizing more programs to disseminate leadership knowledge locally and globally. It is hoped that this will be a fruitful webinar for all, and I look forward to witnessing it. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good day to each and every one of you from whichever part of the world you're from. First of all, on behalf of the University Malaya, please extend our sincere gratitude to each and every one of you who are here today online as well as following our Facebook. So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to once again welcome each and every one of you in the University President Forum, a program by AKEPT and University Malaya, where this is the first webinar series with the title of Future Leadership in Higher Education, Leading Beyond the Pandemic. So ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to kind of give a quick background, setting the scene before we start this session. We all know, as we are being challenged by the global pandemic, leaders of higher education have made a lot of changes as we navigate into these very turbulent times. So confronting in this unique moment, leaders have shifted on how they lead in expedient, very ingenious way. So the changes that have been birthed by necessity, do they have a great potential beyond the crisis? So we hope in this session today, we will be able to get the insights from the excellent leaders who are here with us today, as we unfold and try to answer the big question. While we build this unique moment, the new changes, are we going to return to the ways in the pre-pandemic? What is the mindset and practices that are proven to make higher education leaders most effective? So we are here today to hear the first-hand experience, their thoughts on great leaders from all over the world. So on that, please allow me to introduce the speakers, the panelists for today. The first panelist, Professor Banchong Mahaisawira, is the president of Mahidol University. He is responsible for development, implementation of a progressive and community responsive university policy that includes comprehensive strategic plan, details of institutional mission, vision, goals, setting the right priorities and resources to address the current as well as long-range needs of the university. He is trained as a medical doctor in the field of orthopedic trauma. The second speaker for today is Professor Sally Wheeler, the Deputy Vice Chancellor for International and Corporate from the Australian National University. As the Deputy Vice Chancellor for International and Corporate, she oversees the corporate division, processes, system support to achieve the university's strategic objectives. She also brings together the service division with an extensive, diverse range of responsibilities and coordinates officers from finance, human resources, and infrastructure. She's a professor of law, so for today, we will hear her thoughts on what did it take to be leaders as we move forward after 2 years in the pandemic. The third one, it gives me the great pleasure to introduce Professor Helen Bailey, the Deputy Vice President of the Global Business Development from the King's College London. Interestingly, Professor Helen Bailey is trained as a contemporary dancer and have pursued her academic career, focusing on education, research, leadership in interdisciplinary performance practice, and its intersection with technology. She has great experience working on strategic international higher education partnerships, as well as her expertise in partnership negotiation, business planning, strategic project management in international higher education. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the three esteemed speakers who will share their thoughts on the theme of what does it take to be the thought leadership, what is the future leadership. But before that, I think this is a very much Asian thing. We need to have a group photo. So on that note, please switch on your camera, give a big smile so that my team can take pictures of each and every one of you. So ladies and gentlemen, please switch on your camera. It will take some time for us to have several frames of the picture. There's about 100 plus of us here. So, okay. Are we set to go? Right, so we're gonna go several takes. So 1, 2, 3, first take. Next, 1, 2, 3, second frame. Right, 1, 2, 3, third frame. Brilliant. Another one, are we done? Okay, we are done. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Right. So I think without further ado, we shall start with a session where I will have the first question posed to the first panelist, Professor Banchong, President of Mahidol University. President Banchong, as an orthopedic surgeon, I'm sure, as well as the president of Mahidol University, the central theme, the central concern at that point in time in the last year is very much addressing the global health crisis. But nevertheless, I would like to know, how did you respond to the emotional as well as the psychosocial well-being of your staff? How did you do to restore sort of a quote unquote human connection as a leader, Professor Banchong?
Thank you so much for the invitations. First of all, I would like to mention about Mahidol University. It's the first medical school in Thailand. We start from 1888. In 1888, more than 133 years already. So we understand that our Mahidol University is quite prominent in life science. So the past 2 years, even the chancellor, the president of the Mahidol Council, chair as a committee member for task force in doing advisory board for serving the national policy for COVID-19. And also many from our university has been engaged into the committee. So we have very updated information. This is the our benefits for Mahidol University, that we can have very updated information, and we disseminate to all the staff members and also the parents of the students to make sure that every message that we have, we verify the facts and disseminate to them. So the second one, we start with the business committee members, business continuity member, to start as a team to manage internal management of the university. We prepare the lockdown system to align with the government policy and arrange the work from home policy, virtual teaching and learning process, capacity building for training for staff who not familiar with the virtual teaching and learning process, and provide many infrastructure to the student. Let's say about the Wi-Fi, virtual classroom, package of internet, and also SIM package, and many things. Also the application that we have done in our university to communicate to the student. And we provide a guideline for the protections of the and protection and wellness care for the student and staff and management to differentiate between the one who infected, the one who is in the condition of high risk, and also low risk. We have brochure disseminated to all to have a guideline for the management. We also provide the quarantine housing, and we connect with our faculty of medicine. We have 2 faculty of medicine, and we have 7 hospitals affiliated to Mahidol University. So we have special wards to support our students and also our staff member who infected, and also quarantine housing for any high risk condition. And after we have the vaccination provided by the government, we also provide the station for vaccination for our staff member within the university, so that we can effectively provide the vaccination to the whole university. And also anytime that we have suspicious of the condition, we have provided real-time PCR services for our staff member and also the student for them, so that they can ease for access to the system. Everything that we have, we make sure that it is a high quality services, and also that we have in our nation, so they feel comfortable, because we, as a outstanding medical school, if we can have no any such kind of support, what can our staff and student can seek for? So we have, and also every time that we have the policy of vaccination, let's say second dose, third dose, how is the appropriate vaccination? We also provide the information that we have parallel study and inform the government that this should be the regimen or the guideline for vaccination in the second dose, third dose, and fourth dose, and something like that. And many of medical personnel is Mahidol alumni. You may understand, working in the Minister of Public Health, most of them, I think more than 2/3 from Mahidol University. So we have a very strong connection to Ministry of Public Health. And nurse, I think more than half graduate from Mahidol University Nursing School. So this is to reassure that all the students from Mahidol and staff member within the Mahidol University will receive high standard for them. So this is to make sure, and any information we do not hidden any hide some facts. We disseminate the fact to all members, so that they can make sure that this is the real situation that we have. This is the first question that you give me. Any more if you want, I will explain more. Okay, I hope it will reassure about how we feel and connect to our staff and also the student and also the parents. So we support everything that they need. Demand from the student also have been accessed, and any question from the staff member we reply, and also we try to resolve the problem. This is the Mahidol experience during past 2.5 years.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Banchung. You are really in the national task force.
Yes.
You bring in the community to address the health problems with the knowledge, with the experience, to reach out to students. So you have already got all the connectivity, all the connection, dissemination of knowledge, getting students to have the vaccination program. That's a lot of coordination, articulation from your end. So what I can see is that there's a new way, a lot of innovation a lot of new things that you have put together, people from different walks of life to be working together. And then this leads me to the second question. A lot of innovations that you have done to address the health problem as well as managing higher education. Some of the innovations are about the similar as the ones in the West. I just want to ask you, are things different at the ASEAN universities? So how practical some of the innovations within the context of higher education in the ASEAN universities?
Well, I think since we have a lockdown of the situations in higher education, we seek for another tools to continue our mission for teaching and learning. So the virtual system come and we utilize it more effectively. We less up the competency of any levels, student workshops and also staff workshop to use providing Wi-Fi, also software, let's say about Zoom, WebEx for teaching and learning process, and also the examinations to make sure that it is a transparency and also no any abusing of the examinations. We also provide the software for virtual realities. Let's say in medical school, we have a virtual reality for the pre-clinic study about anatomy, biology or something that we can using virtual reality to health support. We also have the simulation for clinical practice, practice in simulation labs like arthroscope, manipulation, reduction of fractures or dislocations, and intravenous injection, and hand-on several things for medical student and nursing. So this is has been more utilized in such a condition in COVID pandemic during past 2 years. And we quit some of the cross to contact to the infectious condition, but try to provide more in virtual condition and simulation condition. But in certain condition, if the patient, if the student, medical student in last year, they have to accompanying senior staff to join, take care the patient. But actually we have trained them how to avoid contamination and several things that for the contagious condition, so that after they graduate, they can also hand-on by himself or themselves to take care of the patient with infected condition, how we take care the patient like this, how we make a word rounds to follow up the student, the patient, and also how we provide infrastructure to take care of the infected condition with isolation of the rooms. And we also have robotics and telemedicine, so they can learn very effectively the infrastructure and also upcoming technology that we can replace face-to-face or very close contact between medical doctors and the patient. So they understand how they can save themselves and they can also continue the mission to take care of the patient. This is a real setting in Mahidol universities.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Banchong. So what is clear to me from your explanation, the technology innovation, the digitalization, what you have done is to adapt and recurate along the line that fits into the needs of the university as well as in the setting of the country itself. Thank you. Thank you so much. Professor Banchong, thank you. I will leave you for a while, but I'll come back to you later on for the second round of questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to the second panelist, Professor Sally Wheeler from the Australian National University. Sally, my first question is to you is, looking at where we are right now, economic pressure, digital disruption, rising job complexity requires all university leaders to respond to these challenges. What are your thoughts on this? What does it take to be an effective leader in response to these challenges?
Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Australia. I'm talking to you from the lands of the Ngunnawal Ngambri people, and I pay my respects to their elders. They are the traditional owners of the land on which the Australian National University is situated. Great question. I think there is a temptation to think that because everything has changed, we have to rush around and do everything differently. I think it's really important more than ever now as a leader to think about your own workforce, how you are visible to them, how you communicate with them, how you develop them as people, as individuals, and I think how you understand that everyone's journey through COVID has been different. In Australia, we haven't seen the ravages of COVID infections in the way that perhaps other countries have, but we have seen large numbers of people separated for quite a long time from family, etc. I think a third of Australians were either born overseas or have parents who were born overseas. That's quite a big thing for people to contend with. So I think investing in people is just as important as rushing out and trying to beat the global supply chain problems and order new technology. I think recognizing for students that for them, in some ways, everything has changed, and in other ways, nothing has changed. So what has changed for them has been the huge disruption to their lives. What do they want more than ever? They want a traditional university experience, which is predictable, which is structured on our end, but on their end, still recognizes that they know that everything is possible. Things that we have been telling them for years can't be done, they now know is true. So they want maximum flexibility for them, but they also want us to be giving them security, to be giving them structure, to be giving them back 2 years of their lives, more in some instances. So bringing all of those things together, I think it is about recognizing how much is still the same, how many stresses there still are in making everything the same. And marrying up those things is the most important thing to do. Being clear, being compassionate, being visible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So it is all about investing on people, investing on your workforce, looking at the needs, addressing the needs of students, taking into account that despite the disruption, students want something norm, something predictable, some form of flexibility. Thank you very much for your thoughts on this one. This leads me to the second question on internationalization. The pandemic is really put internationalization, it's completely dead for some. So in your capacity as a DVC for international strategy and corporate, how do you lead university strategic engagement with your global partners?
It has been challenging. It's been challenging being on the other end of a difficult time difference, etc. I think keeping momentum in existing partnerships has been tough, and choosing new ones to invest in is equally tough. I think we no longer think, oh, that would be nice. Nice to have a partnership with them, nice place to visit. That is all so much more difficult. So now I think it has to be tied to deliverables, and deliverables that are sustainable. So if we're talking about doing combined research, it's got to be to solve big problems. It's got to be to share equipment, share technology. And in the context of sort of educational provision, I think it's got to be very much more market-led than before. It's got to be what students actually want. So much of this is around trying to keep relationships going, focusing on those important relationships that really do value add. And I think the most important thing is that it's people that make relationships, not institutions. It's trust between individual academics, individual staff, individual office holders within institutions, rather than just saying, oh, look, we're both in the Global 100, we should be partners.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You're pretty consistent. That's answering a second question is really, when you talk about moving forward, internationalization is actually connecting people to people as opposed to institution and institution. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Sally. Again, I'm going to leave you for a while and I'll come back to you in the third round of the question. Right. So I am going to the third question. The third speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me once again to bring to the spotlight Professor Helen Bailey, the Deputy Vice President for Global Business Development from King's College London. Professor Helen, my first question to you. As the Deputy Vice President for Global Business Development, what are the key areas that you are paying attention to now as we steer into this, after 2 years of the pandemic, i.e. going to the endemic phase?
Thank you, and can I thank you again for the kind invitation to contribute today, Professor Young, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm speaking today from the UK, from London, and it's great to be here. I mean, my first point would be to absolutely echo Sally's comment about people. So I won't address that again, but I think absolutely I couldn't agree more. So I think probably the key point for us in the context of Europe at the moment is that we and the UK specifically, we had a really tough time, I think, through COVID, and we're now experiencing a war on the continent, and the sorts of turbulence that brings with it economically, culturally, politically, and then specifically in the UK, also our response to Brexit. So it feels like we have a cluster of crises, actually, and that sense of a sort of how do we manage through crisis, retaining a sense of the long term, managing within a context of ambiguity and complexity. And I think probably King's response to that, our mission statement is to make the world a better place. It's quite grand, it's quite broad, but I think we do that, and that indicates our outward looking nature. And so I think part of what we're focusing on at the moment is how we continue to redefine our own institution in terms of its relevance and as a sort of engine for economic, social and cultural impact. The immediate impact of COVID we're moving on from. It's had profound effects on our institution in terms of staff ways of working. So we're an institution based in the heart of London. We have multiple campus across both sides of the River Thames. So a number of our colleagues now are working in hybrid mode. So trying to really think about how we support that, how we ensure that they remain engaged, how we build that sense of community within the virtual space, and what impact that has on our physical environment. So we're looking at how we shape our physical environment for staff as well as students around working environments that are bringing staff together for intensive experience that are as much around social interaction, cultural engagement, as they are about a kind of transactional approach to workplace activity. So what's the value in bringing people together physically and co-locating, and what's the optimum environment for university activity in that context? In terms of other sorts of activity, I suppose that lead out of the crisis and into sort of endemic phase, King's has partnership with major university hospital trusts within London, Guy's and St Thomas's, King's College Hospital and the Maudsley. So it makes up the largest kind of medical education partnership in Europe. So part of what we're also thinking about is the ways in which our research can continue to support the climbing out of the crisis and how we respond to the endemic phase. A key example of that, and probably in my context of business development and that application of research into innovation, is our work that we undertook in kind of in relationship to COVID through the Zoe app, which was a COVID symptom tracker that one of our professors, Professor Tim Spector, developed in another context and then very quickly repurposed to allow us to undertake a kind of, citizen project around gathering evidence for the symptoms of COVID, which then very rapidly affected government policy in terms of defining COVID back to the population, and provided very important data to help us to track and manage our way through the crisis. So learning, I suppose, about the quick ways in which our researchers were able to repurpose existing research to be applicable within that context. So I suppose that gives us an example of the way in which we continue and hope to build to research that has practical impact, social impact, economic impact, both in the UK and in the world. So thinking about the ways in which we contribute to and accelerate ecosystems around innovation and economic impact are key, I think, in our thinking now, both in terms of our activity locally, but also the way in which we can work towards supporting place-based, solutions collaboratively internationally.
Thank you very much. So what is clear from your explanation, you're addressing the real problem, health. Working with hospitals, trying to come up with innovative ways to address, how do we address this kind of support that we can provide, as well another one that you have mentioned, and looking at the well-being of people who are working on a hybrid mode, on working online. So thank you very much. Okay, this leads me just to my second question. Looking at your position in the global business development. So I'm just going to ask the second question. Your expertise in partnerships, you've mentioned on negotiation, business planning, strategic project management in international higher education. So in that, what do you see? What are the areas where ASEAN leaders must really step up to improve the areas of collaboration between the ASEAN as well as the European or even the Asia Pacific region per se?
Thank you. Well, I'd make a series of points. I think probably first to say, from speaking from position in the UK, in Europe, ASEAN, from my experience of engagement, is a hugely rich and diverse region of the world, and so I'm not sure that we would want to try to presume to explain to ASEAN what they may or may not want to do. I mean, but in terms again of my experience, it very different stages of economic development across the region, and therefore different needs in terms of support in relationship to perhaps education partnerships around the kinds of workforce development needs that are required, and then probably in terms of education, what kinds of support at a macro level in terms of supporting driving up quality and impact for research. And I think it's the sort of potential for multilateral relationships within ASEAN. So those areas of ASEAN that are perhaps further on the development journey, working in concert with partners within ASEAN to then engage with potentially partners in Europe to support in multilateral relationships, I think helps to bridge that divide and perhaps to help with mutual understanding. And I think some of the kinds of initiatives that are happening at intergovernmental level, and from a UK perspective, particularly the role of the British Council in providing infrastructure and support to build those relationships between ASEAN and UK higher education providers has been really helpful to, I think, increase access and awareness. So, you know, an example is the UK Malaysia Universities Consortium bringing together public universities. And I think that context in which dialogue around need, around developing mutual understanding for how we might work together is really effective in then allowing those kind of bilateral relationships between institutions to be built. So I think that those kinds of infrastructure support has been really helpful in building relationships. And then I think probably beyond that, we want, I think, out of COVID to be working towards or moving away from or beyond sort of transactional partnership arrangements that are perhaps, you know, around a small number of programs or particular models of practice, and thinking about how we can develop kind of mutually transformational relationships that build bridges between us and that are multifaceted in terms of their opportunities for activity, whether that's in education, research, student mobility. So I think, and that transformation, you know, requires flexibility on both sides, but allows for real capacity for change. And within that, I think it's moving beyond the kind of import-export model, you know, in terms of the way countries have traditionally viewed perhaps higher education and education collaboration, and I think that's to the benefit of all involved if we can operate multi-directional relationships.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your insights. Yes, I know ASEAN is so big, we are so diverse. So it's I know it's a bit unfair for me to give you an answer that fits in the ASEAN itself. But what is clear from your message is that it is important to have sort of the mediators, in this case, Malaysia and the United Kingdom. The British Council are very instrumental in putting together universities in Malaysia as well as universities in the United Kingdom to be working together. Thank you very much. So once again, thank you for this for the input. I shall leave you alone for a while, and I'll come back to you later on for the third set of questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the second round of questions. So on that note, I would like to bring to the spotlight again Professor Ban Chong, the president of the Mahidol University, on the third question. Professor Ban Chong, the ASEAN, we have come up with a roadmap of a higher education sphere in 2025. I believe it was launched in April this year. Some of the key areas they're looking at is sustainability of higher education. So on that note, I would like to pick your brains. I would like to see what's your thoughts on, as you are leading a top universities in Thailand. So what are the key areas, what are the attributes, or what are the things that leaders in higher education must pay attention to address the sustainability of higher education?
Thank you for the questions. It is very interesting and also challenging. I think how to make higher education to be sustained. We should have value of our missions. Let's say about teaching and learning. The curriculum should be, we have to create value for the student so that they can, the curriculum can attract more students because of the number of students may be decreasing in the future because of the society of newborn, especially in Thai, in several countries that the newborn rate is decreasing. So how can we attract the student from other part of the world? We have to create more value of the curriculum. Let's say about our curriculum should have benefit for the student in the future for the employabilities and also create entrepreneurials in their careers. I just make some example. Let's say about the hotel hospitality in this region. It's quite interesting. Food like a halal type of food that you have experienced in these regions. Environmental science that we have special condition in Southeast Asia, and also in life science, we as in tropical zone, we also very strong in tropical medicine. So we can create more value of our resources, our expertise to attract more students to come to learn from ASEAN university, and we can share expertise among ASEAN university to join to make it more stronger. This is the first step. The second one, the outcome, the income that we can have. Another way is from research output to be commercialized. For the research, we have to create more value from research output. So we have to focus more in our strengths and niche that we have. We also have to share resources of the high cost, cutting edge technology together among ASEAN university to create cutting edge research. The third one is we have to encourage the big company private sector, to encourage or to carry on make innovation to be commercialized, in the world. And also agree among ASEAN countries, how can we encourage the private sector to join with the university to make innovation to be commercialized more easily. That's the way that I think is the next step for ASEAN university to join hands together, create value of teaching and learning by improving curriculum, increasing benefit from our research by sharing resources and technology and experts, and bring the big company and private sector to encourage, to facilitate our innovation to be commercialized in the global level, and also encourage the government among ASEAN countries to facilitate any regulation that we can join together to work more effectively for research to be commercialization. That's all that I think it will be very essential.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Banchong. So what we have suggested is to bring in together all the higher education within the ASEAN region to work together for a common goal, concentrating on three things: teaching and learning, to bring values to the teaching and learning so that we can bring in all the ASEAN youth to be going back to for higher education. Right. Second one you have mentioned is that how do you add value to the research work? How do you commercialize the findings of the research? And the third one, you say to bring it into the ecosystem, the industry itself, leveraging on the industry that has got wealth within the ASEAN region. Thank you very much for your thoughts on this one.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Banchong. So let's move on to the third question, where I am going to pose to Professor Sally Wheeler, the Deputy Vice Chancellor for International and Corporate, ANU. Sally, as part of the Asia-Pacific community, what's your message to leaders in higher education ASEAN to foster collaborations within the region? What are the mutual areas of interest between Australian universities and universities across ASEAN?
So I'd just like to endorse everything that that Professor Banjong said in his answer just now. I think that gives us a roadmap for the way forward. I mean, to that, I would try and say that Australia, while not formally part of ASEAN, sees itself very much as part of the region, and that we should be trying to coalesce with our neighbours around things that we have in common. And what we have in common are some big challenges, and I'll come to those in a moment. But that essentially, you know, we should be trying to move beyond, as I would put it, pinching each other's students to providing a kind of, you know, integrated education package. And we should be genuinely trying to build capacity between Australia, the developed states of ASEAN, and those states that are looking to develop further. And we should be trying to build genuine research cooperation, because, as I say, we face some really big shared challenges. And one of those has to be energy transition, moving towards renewables, towards green energy is really important for all of the economies in our region. Climate change and the consequences of climate change is huge. You know, in the same time space that Australia has seen COVID, just before COVID, it was ravaged by really serious fires. And we have had issues with flooding throughout COVID. As sea levels rise, and the consequences of trying to provide food for an expanding population, that's something else we could cooperate on, is food security, agri-management, looking at what's grown where, whether we're growing the right crops for the climate that we have in particular micro regions, I think is really important. I think cyber security and cyber development is also important, because I think we often underestimate the size of the digital divide. And it's really important that we develop on that. And I think also around public health, medicine, vaccine rollouts, we all have things that we can learn from each other in those areas. And I would like to think that Australia coming out of the pandemic is going to look to its neighbours to build in those sorts of areas.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You have actually narrowed down the key areas that we must work together, from green energy, climate change, food security, cyber security, and public health. Yes, these are all areas that is all of us in which part of the world are having great challenges to address this. And I think it's only fair that we all work together and trying to address the same common problem that each and every one of us is facing. Thank you again. So now this leads me to the third panelist, Professor Helen Bailey. I would like to bring you back to the spotlight from the King College of London. My third question to you is on the what does it take to be a leader? We know very well the changing landscape of higher education calls for leaders to be agile, have got empathy, and a few other attributes. So can you share your thoughts? What are the things, what are the skills that future leader must have? Should there be further global crisis? And what's your take on the skill sets? What are the attributes that has got to be there for future leaders of higher education to become more effective? You are muted, sorry.
Apologies. Someone always has to, don't they? Have to be speak while they're muted. I think we're operating in a period of complexity and ambiguity, and so, you know, that I think I sort of almost want to start with the often quoted quote from British novelist E.M. Forster, who said, "Only connect." And the part of the quote that often isn't included is the end, where he says, "Live in the fragments no longer." So I think, you know, from that we absolutely, I think, understand that skills in collaboration are key. So leaders who can collaborate both and take their institution with them, and instill a culture of collaboration within the institution, but also, and equally importantly, between institutions. So looking for emergent solutions, not driving from a position of, and using negotiation skills to build that common understanding. And just echoing, I think, from Sally, that certainly the grand challenges that King's has identified to draw together our community collaboratively across both students and staff in education, research, and innovation through staff and student-led enterprise activity, etc., are climate change, health and well-being, and security. So, you know, absolutely echo those research themes as grand challenges for our institution, but more broadly too. So I think collaborative skills, a flexible mindset that recognizes that, you know, and can be flexible and agile in response to changing events. Creativity. I have a background in the arts, as you said at the beginning, but creativity isn't, you know, purely the remit of those who study disciplines that are perhaps front and center creative disciplines, but those sorts of improvisatory skills, a kind of design thinking, transdisciplinary method of prototyping, reworking, iterative cycles based on dialogue, I think are key for how we find the most robust solutions. And probably adopting multidisciplinary, if not interdisciplinary, approaches to the ways in which we take forward that solution building. And within that flexibility and that creativity, that collaborative context, we need to have compassion for others and recognize the range of challenges that people have lived through, their differences of perspective. And so an inclusive approach that recognizes, I suppose, the strengths that come out of diversity in terms of the range of perspectives and voices.
Thank you very much. You bring in very powerful words there: compassion, bringing together people from all walks of life, bringing together the whole community to collaborate to address one problem: global challenges. Yeah. Yes. In order to respond to that, we need to have the flexibility. We need to be inclusive, bringing everybody together, taking into account of the diversity of the whole community to address this. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the three panelists. I've got questions coming in, so please allow me to read the first question. What should universities do to better prepare for future crises? I shall open to any one of you, whoever wants to answer this. How do we better prepare for future crises? Okay, Sally?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't realize I was volunteering to do that, but well, obviously, I think we've all had a lesson in thinking through what resilience actually means. I don't think many of us would have foreseen that the challenge that we faced through COVID, mobility challenges, supply challenges, all of those sorts of things would come at once. So I do think we have to be thinking around what is sustainable, that we shouldn't be embarking and spending both human and capital financial resources on things that are not sustainable. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be brave and that we shouldn't embrace opportunities, but we do just need to think about how long we're going to be doing those opportunities for. on what their cost is in order to set up and in order to keep going. So I think sustainability is key. I think constantly investing in people and people-based skills, whether they're technical skills or soft skills, and building in them resilience as well is really important.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry, I must have put in a spot, but thank you once again. So, okay, I've got the second question, which I would like to pose to Professor Banchong on ASEAN. Please allow me to read the question. I do agree with a more multifaceted, holistic partnership among universities, and that is the future of a global university. However, I believe the values held by the partner universities also are crucial. So how, with the existing ASEAN Asian values, are they able to contribute for better partnerships between universities in Australia as well as United Kingdom? You're muted, Professor Banchong.
At this moment, we have a very strong tie between ASEAN University Network, and we can using the ASEAN University Network to join with any community in UK or in Australia together. I think this will be a very a possible way that as a group of ASEAN University Network to join hand with the group in Australia or in UK, that we can working together. This will be easily way. That's my opinion.
Right. Thank you. So we might have different sets of values, but I think in most of it, the values, we uphold some of the common values, be in whichever part of the world we are in. Yeah. Right.
Some more comments. As we have experienced that Austria and ASEAN University Network, we have such kind of collaboration. This can apply to other countries. I think last 2 weeks that we have experienced with Austria and ASEAN University Network. This is very, very effective. So we can use such kind of model to apply to other in UK and in Australia.
Right.
You understand that?
Yes. I think if I can put it in a different way, we might be different in the skin color, we might be different in the way we dress, but I think it is the diversity, it's the difference among us in addressing one same problem, which is addressing global challenges, that brings us together. Yes, Sally, I think you raised your hand.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's not only about big values like those, but I think there's also something important around shared university missions, that you have to have something in common as to whether you're going to be an ever-expanding institution, whether you're a research-focused institution, are you looking at undergraduates, or are you just purely looking at research? Or if those missions are not aligned and the leaders don't actually know each other and get on, I think it's very difficult, and I think it becomes unsustainable. I think it has to be underpinned by those three things: big values, institutional shape, size, and mission, and whether leaders actually find some common ground with each other as people.
Thank you very much. Right, there is a third question coming in. Perhaps I would like to pose this to Professor Helen. The question is, how important is recognizing, creating feedbacks among leaders to any institution? How important is this, trying to get opinions from others as we steer into, leading the higher education in this time?
I think it's key. We're all working towards, I think, understanding and maintaining relevance. So it's thinking about what the role of higher education is for our various stakeholders. So feedback from stakeholders, whether that's our student community, whether it's industry partners, whether it's international partners, whether it's regulators and government and peer institutions, in terms of charting the contribution that we make, ensuring that although there may be elements of competition, that we're thinking about how we work together as a community to achieve what we know we need to achieve in terms of the challenge of the move into the fourth industrial revolution. So how do we understand what, you know, very fundamentally the workforce needs will be in 20 years? So we have to engage with one another, we have to collaborate, and recognize that we will have different strengths that we bring to the table in contributing to those solutions. So feedback is absolutely key. We have to listen. Yeah.
Right. Okay, this is going to be the last question, which I think I'm going to ask each and every one of you. It's quite interesting, this question here. What is the most unforgettable moment that you have experienced in your position as university leader? So I will perhaps start with Professor Banchong.
I think the most important is how the people feel, the panic emotion at that time. So how can we soothing them? How can we make the panics decreasing? That is the important thing that we have to remember. The way to decrease or resume the condition and make the panic getting better.
Right, interesting. Yeah, not to get, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there, vaccines or not to vaccine, what's
Right.
safe, what is not safe. And so for yours, say it's really the most unforgettable moment is really communicating with people, getting in the right message,
Right.
getting the right information. Interesting. Perhaps, Sally, what's your most unforgettable moments in the past 2 years?
I think hearing that Australia had closed its borders and just completely closed its borders to all but returning citizens. And so I'm a lawyer by background. I do work on sort of global corporates, multinationals, etc. So it was quite interesting to see a state reassert its powers in that way over kind of global flows. I'm also a migrant to Australia as well. So that was quite shocking. I work in the international sphere. So I had students here who wanted to go home, and I had students who wanted to come. And the fact that it went on for so long, but it was the moment of first hearing that the state had simply said, no transport in or out. That was massively shocking, and I don't think I'll ever forget that.
Thank you. Interesting. Yes, indeed. Yeah, borders are closed. What do we do? What's next? What can we do? What are the things that we cannot do? Yes, yes. Last but not least, Helen, what's the most unforgettable moment as you're in the last 2.5 years?
Very personal. I began at King's during COVID. So beginning in a senior role in an institution, part of the senior management team, wholly virtually, was probably one of the most challenging moments of my career. So we know when we join an institution, you go and you see people, you shake hands, you sit down and have coffee, you understand the lie of the land. So trying to really get an engagement and understanding of an institution through teams was really, really fascinating. But also, and so for 6 months, I didn't physically set foot in my institution. And so, but getting that sense of the institution, understanding its culture, and seeing that there was a King's College London that existed for me on a laptop in my hastily constructed home office was really, really interesting in terms of understanding, well, what is King's? And actually understanding that it persists through this quite radical transformation. And then 6 months into my time, I took a selfie of my feet physically hitting the ground of the campus. So this is my first physical moment of interaction. So yeah, I mean, that's a sort of career defining kind of experience, really, having to join an institution virtually for 6 months. So that was extraordinary.
Wow. Wow. I think each and every one of us has got our own story. Yeah, very, very interesting. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the session. Although it says I'm supposed to put up a summary, but I think it will not do any fairness to the richness, to the depth, to the thoughts that all the three speakers have shared. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But once again, on behalf of Universiti Malaya, I would like to thank each and every one of you. So as we have come to the end of the session, I'm pleased to invite AKEPT for the closing remark. So on that note, please allow me to invite Associate Professor Dr. Nur Azharuddin Shah Abdullah, the Deputy Director for Center for Leadership, Sustainability, Higher Education Leadership Academy, to say his closing remark. Over to you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I've got this really weird message on my computer now saying that you cannot start your video because the host has actually stopped it. I'm just going to do it. All right. Okay. Right, I've got the message now. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yes. Got you. Yes.
Yeah,
a big smile there. Yes, you got a big smile there. Yeah. Sorry for the technical glitch. So
no
over
worries.
to you.
No worries at all. Thank you so much. Wow, it has been a really engaging session. It's wonderful to hear from such diverse people, and it's an honor indeed for me to be here today. So without further ado, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma aftah lana hikmataka wa anshur alayna min hada'in rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. To the honorable speakers, Professor Banchong Mahai Savaria, the President of Mahidol University, Thailand, Professor Sally Wheeler, Vice Chancellor for International Strategy, Australian National University, Australia, Professor Helen Bailey, Deputy Vice President for the Global Business Development, King's College London, United Kingdom. Yes, to the moderator as well, wonderful job, Professor Dr. Yong Zulina Zubairi, Project Leader of the AKEPT Global Series, Universities President Forum 2022. She is also the Associate Vice Chancellor for Global Engagement in Universiti Malaya, Malaysia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace upon you and a very, very good day. Some of you have perhaps have just started the day. Some is approaching the end. But at the end of the day, it was a wonderful session that we had today. The time difference does not give any difference at all. The message was loud and clear. It was excellent, and alhamdulillah. It is a great pleasure for me to be here today. First and foremost, allow me to convey warm regards from our dear director, Professor Dr. Nasruddin Muhammad, who really wishes that he could be here today, but unfortunately he was tasked to be elsewhere. I'm sure he'll be hearing reports from me with a big smile, and we have gained a lot for the last couple of hours or so in terms of ideas and also efforts that is being done in engaging post-COVID efforts in higher education. Just a bit on the Higher Education Leadership Academy, or what we call ourselves AKEPT. We are actually a unique establishment, which is a part of the Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia, incepted in 2006, set up in 2008. And we basically offer to develop dynamic and holistic leaders through innovative leadership advancement initiatives for national and international needs. And also we try to align as much as possible higher education needs and demands to the trends of the future in higher education, to the effort of building higher education leaders for the future. And today, I think everyone has witnessed an AKEPT effort together with Universiti Malaya in a program known as AKEPT Global Series University Presidents Forum. So before I move further, I would like to thank Universiti Malaya for successfully organizing this program, a Herculean effort indeed. especially in successfully assembling a group of respected individuals, a group of diverse backgrounds, a lawyer, a dancer turned someone that looked into education, leadership, and also an orthopedic surgeon, a wonderful diverse backgrounds. But at the end of the day, all are respected leaders in respected institutions and have gone through challenging times. And my sincere and heartfelt thanks to the panel members, Professor Banchong Mahai Savaria, Professor Sally Wheeler, and also Professor Helen Bailey. Ladies and gents, I think everybody's talking about COVID, and everybody's talking about how did we survive COVID and how are we going to survive further with COVID. It is unprecedented, and it was a huge challenge for any organization, especially education, the institutions. So emergency management teams, quick decisions, and elaborate actions were taken to actually be a response to the crisis. And today we have learned a few things that were discussed by the panelists. And I would like to point out a few things. Number one, it's really interesting when we talk about investing on people. Investing in people will always be the key in terms of making sure that things are actually move forward. And it's also about investing on the right technology to be used at the right time. And I think that the psychological well-being is key in managing the needs after COVID. I think in this case, for example, some initiatives by Mahidol University to support the needs of well-being of students and staff is extremely important. Trust, like what has been said by Professor Bailey, trusting people in terms of their values, their traits, is also something extremely important. And Professor Bailey also talked about the human connection. Social media, the emerging mobile technologies change the landscape of human interaction, and this could be a deterrent, but also could be a point to actually help us to survive life after COVID. Professor Wheeler has also talked about strategic engagements, higher education, student mobility, sectors that have suffered substantial impact from the pandemic, and how local restrictions and also physical context has caused disruptions in the academic planning and delivery of HE worldwide. All three panels were talking about effective leadership in higher education, where people need to understand need to understand their roles, what would they do in terms of making sure that the workforce is optimally used, student needs, and also flexibility in terms of providing options. And I think there is a room and it's an opportunity to improve collaborations. I think ASEAN and the rest of the world, we need to focus on the values that we have and the possible relationships that we need to have, connecting people to people, and also key leaders, key areas where leaders need to pay attention. For example, to be engaging with the virtual and physical environment, show social interaction, and also the value that people that brings together. So I think there's so many things that I could talk about, but I think it's such a rich discussion that it's something that needs to be focused upon. I hope that these ideas can be picked up to be sort of like to be something that is going to be that's going to last. It's really weird how education has survived and somehow being put in a very flexible situation where teaching was done online. Everything was being done in such a way, and it was a huge and quick transition. However, post-pandemic, it seems that everything goes back to normal. So I'm not sure how that adaptability is going. But at the end of the day, I think we should take advantage of what technology has presented to us. But ladies and gentlemen, at the end, I think as the main organizer, we really hope that the knowledge sharing by the experts today provided insights and strategies for all leaders to actually ponder steering the institutions in the right way. And AKEPT is looking forward to organize more of such programs to be able to disseminate knowledge, provide ideas, and sort of like leverage thoughts on what's happening worldwide. Last but not least, I don't want this to be a bit too long. Last but not least, I think before we end, I'd like to convey my special thanks again to all the speakers, participants, and hardworking members of the core organizer, Universiti Malaya. We will have our second series, and I hope to see the panels again, hopefully, as participants this time. Inshallah, the second series of the University President's Forum is going to be held sometime in October 2022. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure. It has been a steep learning curve, and let the learning proceed. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam. Thank you very much, Associate Professor Dr. Nur Azharuddin Shah. You have made my work so easy. You wrap up for me, so it's brilliant. So yes, thank you. Thank you for summing up some of the salient things, some of the important points that has been raised by these thought leaders. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking, there's an emoji there, in thanking all the three panelists in this session. So please allow me to say at least 2 or 3 words as I finish off this session. Leadership matters, and no leader is more important than the leader of leaders. So for all of you out there, those who are appointed to the top job, or for some of you aspiring to be leaders, I hope this session, the learnings, the information that you gain from this session will boost your leadership capabilities by understanding, adopting the mindset and the practices that define excellent leaders. Thank you so much. Okay, Professor Banchong, yes, you will, yes, sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a good day. I'll see you all in the second series. So hold on to your seats. We'll be back. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.